let's go back to these two different voices.
Okay.
And I don't think people in Denver realize how friggin' lucky we are to have two papers. Yes, two screaming left-wing papers, but we'll talk about that some other time. But to have two voices here, to get two angles on a story, to cover completely different stories, to have two different editorial boards. We've gotten used to this, and it is a luxury that most cities our size no longer have. So if one of these papers goes away, whether or not you're a fan of the Post or a fan of the News, politics is going to be different because, you know, I think the News does a better job with state issues. I think they're down at the Capitol. You know, everybody knows Bartles. You know, before that, everybody knew Sanko. They had history. They weren't just a guy.
We're more connected to local news. That's what I want our paper to be.
You know, the people there have history, so they can remember what happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, sometimes 20 years ago. And that perspective you're not going to get with some, you know, minimum wage journalism student that just popped out of school. But I've heard that the circulation between both papers, the crossover is really pretty small, that there's only about 4% of us that get both the Rocky and the Post. If one of these papers goes under, doesn't the survivor have to reach out and try to
I sure hope so, John, and I really hope that happens, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. You know, you call us a screaming liberal, but if you look on Monday's editorial page, you know, in addition to
I'm not going to say editorial page.
I know.
I'll cut that.
But I mean, running in terms of the opinion we run and the idea that you could have these multiple voices. Well, we had Charles Krauthammer, you know, looking at the Obama administration. We had another conservative columnist looking at the Obama administration. Actually, it was Samuelson, who's not an economics columnist, who's really not that conservative. He's really mainstream centrist, but it was a very critical column about the Obama bailout package. It's really important to have those two perspectives, and I think perhaps in whatever resolution occurs, I think it would be very healthy to find a way to make sure that those editorial pages are really open. So when advocates like you...
For instance, Vince Carroll, I would argue, is one of the finest journalists in the busins.
I agree.
I've never met an editorial guy who was so reasoned about it. Now, he's taken me to the woodshed plenty of times, but
because you deserved it.
Because I deserved it, absolutely. But the point being, having those two editorial pages, and you know, I could see where guys like Litwin, you know, he might be asked to join the next paper. I could see where Vince might do it, or Lynn. But what about guys behind the scenes like Rick Henderson, who writes your editorials?
Lots of writers.
Now, he doesn't have a byline, so he's got no stock in the community. He has he's got no street cred because nobody knows he's there. But these great editorials often come from him.
That's right.
You know, I've been in your office and around the newsroom. I think the term gallows humor is going on there because people see it, and I think the uncertainty is killing them.
It's killing me. You're absolutely right, John, that the uncertainty is killing people. I do, you know, I would tell people that I think you're going to see more public developments soon, and that this is going to have to be resolved, and that February is going to be a very intense month, and that there's going to have to be some public actions related to these newspapers. Whatever they are, I don't know.
Give me, you know I'm going to ask this, and I know you're not going to go, well, I can't say. What's going to happen? If you had to write down on an envelope and say, at the end of November, end of February, here are my predictions, and I open it up, what would they say?
Radical restructuring of the two Denver newspapers, no matter what. Even if the Post were to survive, to be the surviving entity, there has to be radical restructuring of the Denver newspaper agency. It has to become a more competitive, more effective organization. We have to become more competitive and effective to survive. I think there's a commitment there on the part of a lot of people to make that happen. I desperately hope that happens. I think it's really critical this town has a good newspaper. So you're going to see a lot of change. That's what you're going to see.
What's that change going to look like? We're going to become
newspaper.
One newspaper.
One newspaper.
Is that newspaper going to be the Rocky? Is there a possibility of that?
There is a possibility of that. I think the best solution, personally, is a combination of the two newspapers.
To meld them together in some sort of thing. All right, let's wax nostalgic for a little bit, because I think it's worth doing. This paper's been around for 150 years. And this paper, I think, is more connected to the community because of that, and also because of the local angle. I think about the personalities. You think about the stories that John Sanko used, the pranks he used to pull. You know, for those who don't know, he used to steal people's stationery from politicians and write them joke letters to one another, and they would freak out. It's good stuff. You know, I'm going to miss this. I'm going to miss this because as a fiscal conservative, when I try to get a story out there, I'll go to one paper. If one doesn't listen, I'll knock on the other, and it doubles my chances.
Yeah.
Whether I feel I'm being heard fairly or not, that's going to get knocked down in half. I'm not going to have that chance to do it.
That's correct. The difference is we live in a new era. The internet opens a lot of doors for you to spread your information in a way that you couldn't do before. You can reach a huge audience yourself through the internet today. And that is the big defining change of our generation. That
Is this the car making, or the buggy making a way for the automobile? Will newspapers, even if we have one newspaper, in 10 years, is it possible we have no daily paper and it's all online?
Yes, that's possible.
Is that good or bad?
Depends how it's done. I'm not going to argue that it's bad. I could see a limited frequency newspaper where on Sunday you get this incredibly intelligent, really well put together package when you have time to read, and maybe you get a paper on Wednesday.
With the store coupons in it.
With the store coupons and more lifestyles oriented, and maybe during the week I'm sending you emails, and then you want the Bronco edition, I deliver you a Bronco edition on Monday, but my grandmother doesn't want the Bronco edition, she doesn't get it.
Your job, and where I can complain that you're not doing it well enough, but your job is to be a watchdog for the government.
That's absolutely true.
With certain standards, to be able to check sources and make sure that you're not libeling somebody, but you're putting out real stories. Who the hell is going to do that? Will it be left to people with hard left agendas and hard right agendas to put out on their blogs? I mean, who's going to do the news?
It perhaps
who's going to scare the governor when you guys are gone?
That should be our society's biggest concern about this. Because the truth is, there's lots of places to get gossip information or a movie review, but who is going to watch how Governor Ritter and the legislature cut the budget and where tax money goes? And the answer is, there is no good answer today, and we're going to have to see what emerges out of this chaos and sort of era of loss, of potential loss of these kind of watchdog organizations. And it is incumbent upon us to do that, but that economic model may not support, our economic model may not support that work anymore, and we're going to have to invent new models. It's perhaps the Independence Institute itself will have to expand its role.
And then groups on the left will be expanding their role.
That's true.
And are we going to devolve back to when newspapers were purely partisan, and it's going to be websites now that are much more partisan? That concerns me, because we need this function. As angry as I can get with you by the way you report these stories, if you go, my side gets hurt, their side gets hurt, and legislators and politicians get away with more because another set of eyeballs is gone.
And I think that's one thing I think we've done poorly is we have not charged people enough for what we do. There needs to be a value to it. And I mean, the truth is we could tighten our organization, get more money, and focus on that kind of reporting, and people would value it, and that would be great for our society.
If this goes, from everybody who I know in politics, left, right, in the middle, this is a gem for all of Colorado, and it breaks my freaking heart to see what's going on here. So,
well, thank you for the
great
support.
people.
Thank you.
And the people who work at the Rocky are all aces. No matter what fights we have,
I appreciate that.
I'm going to miss them. All right, Jon Temple, thank you for joining. Tell a friend about the Independence Institute, independenceinstitute.org. Listen for me late nights on 850 KOA, and we'll see you next week. You jibber jab, bamboozle, nuka noozle, bippity bop, she-gall. You jibber jab, bamboozle, nuka noozle, bippity bop, she-gall. I mean, you keep on talking, but you don't know where to turn it off.